Like to call the February 10th, 2022 council meeting in order at 4:45 PM. Machines are open for roll call. Let the record show 6 members are present at the time. Mr. Bartholomew's here, so 7, and Ms. Newberry's walking in now, so 8. Mr. Black stepped out for a minute. Can we go to the proclamation, please?
A proclamation declaring February 10th, 2022 as Ashner Serves Day and Second Harvest Day in the Parish of Plaquemines. Councilmember Bartholomew.
I offer.
Mr. Bartholomew offers, I'll second.
Unanimous second, please.
Get a unanimous second? Any? Yes, sir, unanimous second.
Thank you, sir.
On motion of Councilmember Bartholomew, second by all council members, and on roll call, all members present and voting yes, the following proclamation was unanimously adopted. A proclamation declaring February 10th, 2022 as Ashner Health, Ashner Serves, and Second Harvest Day in the Parish of Plaquemines. Whereas Ashner Health delivers health to the people of Louisiana and the Gulf South with a mission to serve, heal, lead, educate, and innovate, is celebrating 80 years in 2022. And whereas Ashner Health is a not-for-profit committed to giving back to the communities it serves through preventative screenings, health and wellness resources, and partnerships with innovative organizations that share a vision to inspire healthy lives and stronger communities. And whereas as a nonprofit healthcare system, Ashner strives to positively impact the communities we serve through our Ashner Serves Employee Volunteer Program, which gives employees the ability to align with Ashner initiatives and search for Ashner coordinated volunteer opportunities in communities. And whereas Ashner serves as a team to set up and tracks team building service events, as well as encourages others to suggest and create their own volunteer opportunity. And whereas Second Harvest was founded in 1982 and leads the fight against hunger in South Louisiana by providing food access, advocacy, education, and disaster response. And whereas Second Harvest provides food and support to 700-plus community partners and programs across 23 parishes. And whereas Second Harvest is about leadership, service, and making difference in the lives of those who volunteer. And whereas this council would like to celebrate Ashner Health's 80 years of service to our region and show our support and appreciation to the volunteers of Ashner Serves and Second Harvest. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Plaquemines Parish Council represented by its duly authorized chairman, Mark Konovich, and by concurrence of the parish president, Kirk M. Lapine, representing the Plaquemines Parish government, that it hereby declares February 10th, 2022 as Ashner Health, Ashner Serves, and Second Harvest Day in the Parish of Plaquemines.
Are there any comments from the table?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I want to take a moment. It has been over the years that we've been having, every time we have a hurricane, they're here to help provide needs to those people who didn't have access, immediate access for the meals, for the water, for the ice, and for the food to continue their life in the region, and especially in the area where they're from, where they live at. And they were able to provide those services through the commitment of the Oxygen organization and also its employees. Without any reservations, they committed themselves to provide that service, and it went off very well. And the people on East Bank, and I'm sure well on West Bank as well, was very appreciative of their effort, because they did provide a means of life by providing those necessities to continue the growth of our young people as well as the elderly in during the Hurricane Ida. So with that, I want to thank them very much for the unselfish commitment to providing those needed services to our community.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council? Administration? Machines are open. It passes 8-0.
Could we take a picture, anybody would like for the council, along with Mr.
Yes, sir.
Would like to come take a picture? Oh, why? You don't want to see yourself? That's right.
Got everybody. All right. 1, 2, 3. One more.
Thank you. Status report by the parish president.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Go over a few things today. Our COVID numbers are coming down. The last 2 weeks, positive rate has went from 32% to 26%, and now it's at 16.6. So it's gradually coming down, and we still ask people that have not vaccinated. We're still vaccinating at the PMC, and we haven't done any testing in a while. That was done by the National Guard. So when we do have that again, we'll have that information put out. But we do see some of the numbers coming down. We're pretty encouraged. I took a trip to Washington. I was with Councilman Russo and Sandy Sanders at a couple of meetings with the Louisiana delegations, and I want to compliment Councilman Russo and Sandy Sanders for the information that was presented in front of these delegations. It was first class. I had a successful meeting with Bill Cassidy one-on-one. He asked to meet with me. I met with him, and of course, his first thing was said, "What can we do to help?" And my first words out of his mouth was FEMA. We need help with FEMA. We need help with FEMA response. I need help FEMA reimbursement. So I hope we caught his ear. It seemed like they were very engaged. So I want to continue that conversation. I have another meeting with some of his representatives on Wednesday. And still, that's going to be my platform, is where we're at with any direction we can get to get FEMA expedited on some of these issues. Yesterday, I took a trip down to Venice, to South Pass, to see the dredging that is now open. The navigation is open. The pass is open. They have finished the dredging as of yesterday. It hasn't been dredged in 13 years, so we're pretty excited about that. So it's making a better way for safe travel down that pass. And for commercial and recreational boats. And they did show us a couple of spots where they actually put the sediment. And it's amazing to see what they've done out there. So the channel now is 300 feet wide, and it's got 20 feet of depth. So that hasn't been in a while. So as we look forward now, our goal is to get some of this good weather, get some people down to Port Eves, some interesting parties now that you can get down the pass and get them down there to survey Port Eves and maybe have some interest there. And in closing too, as today you notice that I have on the agenda, or we have on the agenda under 9Q, resolution to go out for some revenue bonds. As it's written, it's $50 million. Now, it doesn't have to be $50 million. It could be whatever you guys decide. It's in there because that's what our bond attorney recommended, and he's here today, Jason Akers, and he'll make a presentation. And in the audience, I do have our debris contractor. In the audience, I have our levy contractor who's done a magnificent job for us, saving us. Also, I have Portco, a company who worked on our pumping stations through these emergency times. So right now, guys, it's getting crucial where we need to pay some of these vendors. And again, we'll have some of these people speak or ask questions. I have Rostan here today. That's my program manager with FEMA. If there's any questions that need to be asked. But it's a discussion we need to have and tell you the importance of how we need to go forward to operate just to pay some bills, just to get some money. I have finance people here too. I even have the sheriff here. The sheriff and I work very well in the emergency circumstances. I got to tip my hat to the sheriff's office who's done a phenomenal job. So these people will be here. I will ask respectfully, Mr. Kognovich, if we could go to 6Q and start that discussion. And Jason Akers will kick off the presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
Mr. Lapine, there's a gentleman that's trying to resolve a water issue, and as he stated earlier, it's minor compared to the gravity of what we're going to be discussing. Mr. Epley is involved in it pretty heavily, and the only reason that he came here is because the administration told him that the only relief he could have would be here for a water bill that he alleges that the parish knocked off of its foundation, busted it a couple of times, 2 adjustments and all of that stuff. So I'm not gonna tell him that if he can get with y'all one more time and see if you can resolve it, and if it's indeed, if you reflected him to me for a resolution to do something in an ordinance, then send me the ordinance and see what it says, because Mr. Epley, I believe you say the only relief he could get is at this table?
Yes, sir. In the code, we've given the 2 leak adjustments per year that we're allowed to do by code. The only other recourse he may have is to present his case to the council. The council can vote to give him some other recourse from what I read in the code. So, yes, I'm happy to have another discussion with Mr. Johnson. If it is legislation that needs to happen, we'll get with you on that.
Right, and, I think that we need to address when the parish does some damage to water meters, with grass cutting equipment, we need to look at that and, make the proper call, I would imagine.
Well, we would be happy to fix it, and we would be happy to adjust the bill if we had any proof at all that the parish actually did damage the water line.
Well, it's a he said, she said thing here, but the man has gone out and he's at his own expense now and building and welding a cage to protect the water meter from it happening again, because it has a history of us running over it. But anyway, that's for another time. So if you would get with them one more time, and then we'll see what we can do. Just don't cut his water off, and that's till we resolve it.
I'll make that commitment to the gentleman. We will not cut the service off. We will investigate and make sure that it's done properly.
All right.
So,
Thank you, sir, for coming. You can go.
Thank you. Any other comments? The audience? Say what?
What's he commenting on?
Oh,
Oh,
President, congratulations on your trip to Washington, D.C. You say you talked to the senator one-on-one. About FEMA, did the community of Ironton came up for some help, man? Did the community of Ironton came up for some help,
Mr. Henry, you have to ask us the question.
Well,
The answer, it's up to him.
you can't answer that one,
Mr. Henry, what I can tell you is my concern was Ironton, the southern end, the northern end, anything that to do with rebuild, refix, or even reimburse. I've asked each and every point that I could. Ironton is very dear. I understand. There's other people who are struggling with FEMA problems too throughout the whole parish. So I asked him point blank, is we have to see some response. There is very little response. I've been through the channels from the FEMA representatives all the way up to it, and they keep changing FEMA representatives, and that's very frustrating because you get to one and then they change it. So we've talked about that, but it's from everything that FEMA does was our conversation.
Yeah, listen, it's about West Point has too. All the places that got damaged, you know. I see other places getting money, you know. Why not us? That's all I'm talking about, you know.
Henry, let me ask
You know, and I hope something good come out of it.
Mr. Henry, let me assure you that one of the first questions that the senator asked me was about Ironton.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't bring Ironton up because I just had walked in the door, but he brought it up because he went there and he knows the situation.
Yeah. I just hope the people get some help, man. It's a whole community.
Thank
Can I respond to that, Mr. Russo?
Yes, sir. You want to cue in?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. LaFrance.
Mr. Henry, my office has been in contact with Senator Cassidy's office, also Senator Kennedy's office. And that's a high priority on this list. And the main thing that we have to have is elevation. We need elevation grant. Now, I'm also in contact, and which I wasn't going to say until it's written in concrete. I also met with a group of pastors that contacted me that wanted to come down and meet with the people in Ironton. They met with their bankers, and they said anybody that in Ironton that need financing for a home, that they are going to support them in getting the finance. They met with the bankers already. But before I could move to that point, I got to get the elevation. Soon as we can get the elevation grant, then I will bring that group down. But and like they told me, they said, Mr. LaFrance, we're not from your area. This is not our parish, but we want to help the people in Ironton and West Point LaHash. But until we get that elevation, we need that elevation grant.
Colton, I just wanted to bring that to a public forum, man. That's all I wanted to do, that the people know, hey, Plaquemine is working for you. You know what I'm saying? We need to let people know what we're doing, you know?
Well, you know, and that's good, all is said and done. But I'm a type of person, until I have it in my hand, you know, like the old people would say, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. So until I have it, until we have that elevation, then I'll bring that group in. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? Can we go to 9Q? Q.
Agenda item 9Q, a resolution giving preliminary approval to the issuance of not to exceed $50 million of hurricane recovery revenue notes of the Parish of Plaquemine, State of Louisiana, and providing for other matters in connection therewith. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer, ask for a second. Second by Mr. Earlborough.
And this is offer as a substitute.
Yes.
On the last two lines of the first whereas was changed to read as follows. II, paying existing essential functions of the issuer's operation or expanding such functions to meet disaster-related needs. And then III was funding a reserve if required, and IV is paying the cost of issuance of the notes. And the same changes from the first whereas were made in section 1, and they also added at the end of section 1, it is expressly provided that up to $5 million of the preliminary authorization contained herein is authorization for a FEMA community disaster loan for the issuer.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Congress, I'll yield to Jason Akers for explanation.
Sure. Thank you very much, council members. Jason Akers with Foley New Dell. Let me first address the amendments that required the substitution. That is because in between the time of the introduction of the resolution and the adoption today, we understand that the parish was at least preliminarily approved for a $5 million community disaster relief loan from FEMA. So we intended, instead of delaying the process, we could use the same resolution to proceed with that. And otherwise, it would have to start a reintroduction and approval at a later date. So we were just trying to expedite the process for you. The Hurricane Recovery Note process actually has its genesis in the state CEAs that were provided to various political subdivisions following Hurricane Katrina to provide working capital and other capital necessary to make the improvements that were going to be required by the disaster. Unfortunately, that was something that was authorized by Congress following Hurricane Katrina as part of the Gulf Opportunity Zone Act, and Congress has not yet acted on anything significant for Hurricane Ida. For that matter, Congress hadn't acted on anything significant for Laura or Delta either, or Zeta, or anything else that hit us all in 2020 or 2021. So in talking with a number of our clients throughout the Gulf Coast region, we began realizing that there was a real concern about the timing between expenditures of funds for hurricane recovery projects and the receipt of those matching funds or those shared funds back from either FEMA or private insurance. So a number of our clients have actually taken advantage of this opportunity to actually use someone else's money, in this case a lender's money, to provide that seed for hurricane recovery projects. To date, the State Bond Commission has approved 15 of these. Most of them have actually closed. We understand that 1 to 2 at least will be on the agenda in next week's State Bond Commission meeting, which will bring the total up to 17 so far at a minimum. I know that there are others that are moving forward again as well. So this is something that others have taken advantage of, because what it does is it allows you to preserve fund balance that you may need for other purposes for an extended period. That fund balance then, that extended period gives you as a council the opportunity to really decide what you want to do with the funding going forward. After you've made your expenditures, you've submitted your reimbursements, you get the money back from FEMA or from private insurance. At that point, that money can be used to pay down the loan, or you can decide if you want to amortize it at that point over an extended period. That's a decision, however, that can be made a year or 2 years down the road, and it preserves you with flexibility as a council and as a parish to ensure that the recovery moves forward without jeopardizing the funds that you have on hand, and without jeopardizing making hard decisions about prioritizing some recovery projects over others. With your approval, this just authorizes us to go to the State Bond Commission. It would have to come back to you for a final approval, just like every other borrowing that we do. It authorizes you to go to or authorizes us to go to the State Bond Commission for approval on your behalf. Once we get that State Bond Commission approval, we would come back to you and at that point decide how much is necessary to move forward and what is the preferred repayment terms. Lee Bressler with Raymond James will be working with us on that part going forward. The $50 million number is an eye-catching number. It's a large number, but we got to that by the estimates that were prepared by the administration and the FEMA consultants as to how much of, what is your outside limit of recovery costs. And it's roughly $48 million to $50 million. And of course, that's actually 30 days old, so that may even be a stale number now. But roughly 20 million of it is debris removal. The remainder is protective measures, building rehab, environmental remediation, et cetera. Those reimbursements are going to take a while to come in. So we wanted to just provide you with an opportunity to consider an option that would give you the funding necessary to ensure that those recovery efforts continued. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can answer. I'm sure I'll speak for Lee and I'll say he's happy to answer any as well. Or if there's anything else that we can assist with, even after today, you know we're happy to do it.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Administration?
If the sheriff is here, I'd like for the sheriff to come up for a minute and just address the council.
Can Mr. Blink?
Certainly. Just if it's apparent that we have to take a $50 million loan to get through disasters, would this council and administration agree that we shouldn't be giving any sort of industrial tax exemptions in the future, particularly to Venture Global in their second phase? We'd be foregoing $88 million a year in tax money to the local taxing authorities. Does anybody have any comments on that or would agree with that statement? Are y'all scared of the company? We are having to take a $50 million loan to deal with hurricanes?
Mr. Blink, let me assure you, I am not scared of that company or anyone else sitting in the audience. When I make a decision up here, it's in the best interest of the people of Plaquemines Parish. So to throw that out there about being scared, and the industrial tax exemption, as you know, I voted and offered the last one against the industrial tax exemption that came before us. So I don't know where you were headed with that. This is a touchy subject for me. I'm going to let the sheriff make his comments, and then I'm going to address the sheriff.
You done, Mr. Blink?
Go ahead.
Finished?
No, I mean, here it is. We're at this point. We have to take a loan to even get through some bad weather here. And we let entities come here, give them tax exemptions. And there's a big one coming up, right? They have their second lease. They're permitted by the federal government. They must build on land owned by this port. And it might be up to us, some of the people on this body, to determine whether they get it or not, or the people that are going to come next. Certainly the administration might have something to say about cash flow. I'm sure $88 million a year would help us not have to go take a loan when the weather gets bad.
Well, Mr. Blink, to address you, wasn't this on the port agenda and it was voted yes on?
So we approved the lease. We didn't approve whether they get any tax exemptions or not. That's going to be coming up in the near future. They're commercializing the project. It's advertised widely on their website. Construction seems imminent. Matter of fact, don't they have a construction permit for their second phase now? All right, we'll move on.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Turlich?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to come out, talk to Kirk, and Kirk was giving me a little background on this. And look, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen Councilman Roussel as parish president. I thought him and Jeff did a good job during a disaster. So I've been there on the front lines for 32 years. I thought Kirk did a good job. I know he made some tough calls. I know he's asking for a lot of money, but I think he had the interests of our residents in mind, because I think he rocked 7 miles before the storm even came on the levee. I don't think we rocked the levee, and I don't know the time frame, but we probably haven't rocked the levee since Katrina, maybe. So having the citizens in mind and the safety and the return of the citizens in mind, I don't know if y'all rode the levee prior to it coming, but it was in deplorable shape. So that's why I'm here. I thought he did a pretty good job with that, and I just wanted to come comment on it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Audience?
Mr. LePage,
Okay.
yes. Here we are, we're asking to float $50 million bonds. May I ask, where's our financial director?
I'm sorry?
Where's our financial director? Where's Mr. Surprise?
Finance Department is here, represented out here. Our finance director is on a personal sick day today, but we are represented by our finance department. And we have a question.
Why we are in need of floating a bond if FEMA is going to cover the cost?
Good question, Mr. LaFrance. They are going to cover. They are going to reimburse. But again, when are they going to reimburse us? That is the question. And when we wait, it gives us, right now we're holding $4 million of outstanding invoices to pay people. Cash flow is a problem. Everyone gets this conception that it's 90% reimbursable, 100% reimbursable is the key word. We pay and then they reimburse us. It's not they pay and then they take care of the bills. That's not how it works. So it puts us in a cash crunch every day. We're in a cash crunch. And there's other future projects that are coming online that may be slowed because of this cash crunch. So I understand what your concept is. I do. But this is about paying vendors when we needed these vendors right away. Again, as you heard the sheriff, we rocked that road because we lost that highway. And the only way to get people down was on that levee. So that was so important to get that rock. And when we did it, when I called a state of emergency and we did it, that became 100% eligible, that rock. So now it's on FEMA. But again, I got to pay the vendors so I can get reimbursed for that.
So how much of that $50 million will be reimbursable by FEMA?
Well, the resolution is up to 50 million. Again, I think Jason has explained to you, we go to the bond commission for 50 million asking for that. We don't have to borrow. If you guys want to come back and borrow 20 million, 10 million, whatever it is, I think that, am I saying that right? The ability to get up to 50 million, Jason?
Sure. It's a preliminary parameter approval of up to 50. Based on the numbers, though, that we have been provided of that $48 million estimated maximum cost, the estimate is that 45 to 46 will actually be reimbursed by FEMA. 45 to 46 million of the 48 million will be reimbursed by FEMA. So there is a small portion to be addressed by the parish, but of that,
that would be our percentage.
That would be your percentage, your 10%.
If it was 10%, up, the 90-10%, then now 10% we're responsible.
And some are 100, but
Right.
but that money's going to come in a trickle over a course of several months, and so that's the purpose of doing this borrowing.
And I want to just, Rostan is here too, so if there's any questions, there was an expedited with FEMA, make sure I'm saying that right, Carlos, can you help me out? Okay, there's an expedited system that we go through FEMA that would expedite the process. There's also an express through the state, through GOSEP. We have applied on both ends of those to try to move the money forward. Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So to go back to his point,
Please introduce yourself.
Come to the mic.
excuse me, Carlos Arredondo with Ruston Solutions. To go back to the point of how much it will be reimbursed in terms of the money expended, it's not based off the $50 million, it's based off how much the parish actually have to incur in cost. Based off of that, whatever is on the 90% cost share aspect, the parish will be responsible for that extra 10%. In terms of the actions that the parish has taken to expedite the process of the reimbursement through FEMA and the state, as Mr. Alpin just said, we applied for an expedited PW, which means that through the FEMA process, we will go faster through the queues of reviews so that the money can be obligated at a faster manner. And then through the state, on a separate program, we opted in for what is called Express Pay, which will allow the process, once the money gets obligated, the state needs to go ahead and go through their own queues. That process will also be fast-tracked, and that will hopefully get the money faster back to the parish.
Okay. Have we reconciled all our expenses from Hurricane Zeta?
No, sir, not all of them. So sorry, go ahead.
So does FEMA still owe us money from Zeta?
So for the money that has been expended,
You've been paid for Zeta. All the work that's been completed, you've been, you have payments, I apologize. Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Jamie Walsh, I apologize. For Zeta, I did misspeak. You're not paid in full, but you have received payments. And then some work has not been done because then you were hit by Ida again, so you couldn't complete that work.
How much did we make? How much money did we get from FEMA for Hurricane Zeta?
For Zeta, like how much you've been reimbursed?
Yes.
I do not have that exact number, but I think it's been, because you got express paid, so it's about 800,000.
And how much was the expense?
Oh, like $1 million, yeah. You've been paid the majority of it for the work that's been done.
Have the books been closed on Katrina yet?
For Katrina, I am not the consultant for Katrina.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Mr.
LaFrance.
Konovich, when you spoke to FEMA, what did they tell you about,
Well, they told me we owe them money. That they paid us what we were supposed to get, and we owe them.
So we have, I mean, I don't know if Kurt, again, I'm not the consultant for Katrina.
Well, we actually dispute some of that. FEMA's pushing for the closeout of Hurricane Katrina, and we're going back and forth on the books on what's what. Mike Gaffney, our attorney, is looking at some of the things they claim we owe them. We're in the appeals process for some of those issues. FEMA claims that on a few things they floated us money on projects that we never pursued, and so therefore the expenses we had on that, they're claiming they need to go back. I think what we all need to understand is that as part of that process, I don't remember what the exact number is, but it was hundreds of millions of dollars of projects going back and forth. And I think what's important is that the discrepancies, the window, I think is less than 1% on where we have a dispute about what FEMA says we owe them and what we claim, were legitimate payments. And so we're going through that closeout process. I mean, we wish it was done as well, but the problem is it's not done. Anyone who's had any experience with FEMA knows that the turnover is an annual turnover rate on folks, and quite frankly, our people are more educated on a lot of FEMA's rules and policies and procedures than anyone else. So, look, we understand the council's frustrated that we're still dealing with FEMA from Hurricane Katrina. Throw Isaac in the mix, and throw the hurricanes and events we had last year in the mix. We had Lynn Browning, the head honcho who represents GOSEP for this whole process in the parish president's office less than a month ago. And a matter of fact, we've been having weekly meetings with them to pressure them to advocate on our behalf and do everything that we can do to get these expedited payments, including the expedited payments and express pay that Jamie and Carlos just mentioned to you all. So, we're doing everything we can that we know is possible through the process to get cash on hand, and there's nothing more we can do. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, until FEMA cuts a check, grants it. The other thing we're fighting on is pay policy. We've had a pay policy in place that FEMA reimbursed our employees on the forced account labor for multiple storms, right? Probably going all the way back into Katrina. Well, some FEMA bureaucrat got a hold of that last year and said, oh, well, I got a problem with this. We've been fighting with them for how long now?
It's been since 2020.
Since 2020. We've been fighting with them for 2020 to say, hey, guys, this policy was good, it was valid, and you guys have had no issue with it for 10 years, however many storms we had, and all of a sudden one person is the holdup. So the process is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it other than be consistent, other than constantly take advantage of all the availability, all the policies and procedure available to us, and use Mr. Gaffney to the best of our ability to continue to fight what we think we are entitled to. I think what Jamie and Carlos would also say, though, is that for these storms, or certainly since Mr. Lepine's been in office, we've been doing everything we know to properly procure all these items so that we can ensure reimbursement. And so when every hurricane that hits, I'm on the phone with Mr. Gaffney, I'm on the phone with Ross Stan, whoever our FEMA representative is at the time, to ensure that these things are procured properly. And I don't want the council to think that Mr. Lepine is out there willy-nilly just granting contracts to whoever, whenever. These contracts were all signed pursuant to RFPs. They were all properly graded, and we're confident that all of the actions we take will be reimbursed. Mr. LaFrance, the 100% reimbursement rate was for the first 45 days of the storm. So any and all expenses that are directly attributable to the storm during that first 45 days, we understand to be 100% reimbursable by FEMA. It's after that 45-day window where our cost share becomes 10%. And so at some point, finance, once those numbers are more solid, finance will be coming to this government to say, these are all the potential projects we have out there where our cost share is 10%. Some of those PWs are going to be written on what we call permanent work. And the council is going to have to make a decision about whether or not it's going to put up the 10% cost share to get that permanent work done in the future. So the 50 million figure is based off of all of that. It's based off of not just what we've done in the emergency phase of this storm. It's also what we're looking at in terms of the assessments that have been done by Rostan and by the government on what we're looking at in terms of permanent work going forward.
When are we going to see a list of the PWs?
And we can do that. We can do that, and we can actually present, if invited, we can certainly present on IDA specific and give you a little bit more detail, obviously, as to the projects.
Well, one of the problems we run into, this is the administration, this is your proposal. Now, we had a meeting last week with the financial director, and a lot of the questions that we asked, he couldn't answer. We didn't have no one from administration. Now, we traveled all the way from Mr. Heibo, traveled from Booville, I come from Port Sulphur, and a lot of these questions that we asking here now could have been avoided because we could have answered those questions when we had that meeting.
We're here to answer the questions now, Mr. LaFrance. So,
Mr. Cutledge?
I'm in the queue, and I have one. If
Mr. Blink?
All right, I'll start. The $15 million in professional services, that isn't broken down any further. Can you elaborate on that? Give us a list.
Professional services.
Oh, here, for professional services, over here, there's $15 million that was spent between 8/1/21 and 2/28/22. That's a lot of money, and it's very vague.
I believe that's to be the contracted work, and that includes the debris contractor, the monitoring contractor, for the professionals, what they're calling the professional services. As far as the expenses that we have taken in the parish for the IDA-related items, that number is very similar to the $60 million that we have projected for contracted work.
Okay, that's helpful. If there's anything that
The bulk of the 15 million, the bulk of everything is obviously debris removal. A contract was signed with debris with Dynamic, who, by the way, was the lowest bidder. That's why we went with them. That we capped that contract at $15 million. And I believe the debris monitoring contract is capped at $1 million, which also was the lowest rate by applicants. Actually, it was rates from 3 years ago. So that's the bulk. What we're mostly talking about is that.
Yes. Yeah, out of $17 million, that's definitely the bulk of it.
Correct.
Yeah. But it just would be helpful if it's broken down. I mean, this is a major decision, and people got to know. Right, Mr. Henry?
That could be good.
You can just say it, the mic.
You finished?
Yeah. Also, look, if it's like a universal problem that FEMA takes forever to pay local governments who are reeling from a disaster, I mean, is there any kind of joint letter? Are you getting with other parish presidents to try to make a bit of a push? Other counties that are along coastlines in Florida and Texas that are having this problem?
Well, just here, Mr. Blank, we have many conversations with my counterparts in the different in D.C. we had a couple of president meetings also, and our biggest concern was FEMA. And again, there's a chart in here that I put in there that shows different parishes, their debris, and they took out loans too because of their cash flow and their problems. I've been on multiple calls with these different presidents of these different parishes, and they are incurring the same problems that we are, cash flow.
Sure. But I mean, yeah, it sounds like y'all are going to get together and
we have been getting together. We've talked to the governor. I have called the governor personally and told him our concerns. My idea was to the governor is float me some money from your surplus, and when FEMA pays me back, I'll pay you back. And kind of gave me a nonchalant answer. But there's money out there that's owed to me that from past storms. Okay, so this is this is my biggest concern. My biggest concern is these contractors will not bid next time or not show up next time when we have an emergency because we can't pay them from last time.
Yeah.
Okay, that is my biggest concern. And guess what? We're 5 months away from hurricane season. So it's very close, and it's going to happen very quickly. So that is our biggest concern, that if we cannot pay these contractors, then they're not going to bid one and they're not going to show up.
So, and this is maybe for the folks from Foley Udell here, but what do we currently have out there right now? What's the parish's debt right now? I mean, it changes year to year, day to day, but how?
It changes year to year, not day to day.
$150 million?
No, it's under that. We actually do have that number here. I'm going to let Lee Bressler with Raymond James give that figure.
Hello, good afternoon. The parish has about 95 million of debt outstanding. 25 million was backed by the sales tax and 70 million by the available funds.
And what is the interest? Don't give the whole number. Don't just give the debt.
The combined debt service is about 130 million.
Through 2042.
Through 2042, principal and interest. The other was the principal.
So with the 50, that would be 180.
We're having stronger and stronger storms every year, and we get a good one every year. I mean, this is unsustainable.
Yeah, the 95 plus the 50 again is an interim loan. It'll be paid back when the FEMA money comes in.
If we weren't saddled with the current debt, it would be about, what, $8 million a year? Is that our debt payment?
8.5.
$8.5 million a year. We could do a lot of good. The residents here, I mean, what's the payment going to be on this?
That's really difficult to say because at this point, all we're talking about is getting to a point where then you could be presented with an option to really understand what the borrowing is going to look like. However, if you were to borrow the full 50 million, and which, again, we all hope that that's not the case, but if you were to borrow the full 50, by the time the FEMA reimbursements are taken out, that drives it down to $4 to $5 million. So, at that point, we're talking about a much smaller burden going forward.
Plus the interest.
Yeah, plus it.
While we're waiting.
Thank you all very much.
Sure.
Okay, I yield. Thank you.
Dr. Gouy?
Kirk, I think it's important that we emphasize we're talking IDA money, only IDA money. We jumped from Katrina and every storm in between about what we may owe. None of this is for that. So if this gets approved by the bond commission and you come back to us, I would like to know how the money is taken out. Is it in one lump sum? Or is it up to so much but on an as-needed basis?
Well, I think Jason could add, I think it's crafted in different ways. Because a bunch of these different parishes have done it different ways. Is that correct, Jason?
That's exactly right. And the purpose in going out to the market, and Lee would really be handling that aspect of it, but the purpose in going out to the market would be to present you with options for you to determine what's the best way to actually do the borrowing. We've had some clients that have gotten, well, for example, St. Charles Parish got approval for 50 million. They only borrowed 20 million. That 20 million they got all up front. They may decide in the future to go out for another tranche. But they have approval up to 50 million, only used 20 so far. St. John Parish has approval for 70 million. They've only used 30 million so far. They may go out for a different approval. There have been others, some school boards, for example, that have actually borrowed, but borrowed on what we call a drawdown basis. And that drawdown basis allows them to pull it down only as needed, and it stages the draws out. But the banks have certain conditions on that. They don't want to just give you an open-ended credit card, for example, to draw down and use it whenever you need. They want to know that eventually that money is going to be drawn because they've got to set it aside internally for their own purposes as well. So our goal would be, if you want to move forward, to actually present you with a few options. Lee, I don't want to speak for you, but our goal would be to present you for a few options and let you determine what's most favorable for your particular circumstance.
Thank you.
Another thing that'll have an impact will be on, because we've done this express pay, and expedited payments, a lot of it will depend on also, because my understanding is this process is going to take a couple months. And so if using that express pay and expedited pay, we get a lot of cash from FEMA, then obviously that's something that's going to be taken into the equation when it comes time for you all to decide what option you all want to exercise, which of course would then draw down what we were potentially borrowing. Because I think the administration isn't looking to have 50 million cash to do whatever. I think our goal is simply to pay the bills that we have now, and then once the permanent projects come out, that exactly what we need to do. This council is going to have to make a decision about what kind of investment it wants to make as it relates to the permanent projects, the building rehabilitation stuff going forward. So that's our goal. That's what we're looking at. Hey, if FEMA gives us, if we're able through the expedited payments and stuff to get a lot of money before you guys do the loan, then we're going to, obviously we're interested in borrowing less.
Mr. Bartholomew?
PWs, are they pre-approved by FEMA?
No, sir. They don't have to be. If for whatever structure or facility that the parish is responsible for and has the authority of that facility, they don't need authorization from FEMA to bring them back to pre-disaster condition.
But then if FEMA don't approve that project, then we stuck with the bill, the invoice.
Well, the public assistance programs is out there to assist with the restructure or the rebuilding of these facilities. So automatically, by the parish being eligible for public assistance, these structures will be eligible for reimbursement through the rebuilding of the facilities.
But not always approved into the text of what it costs to rebuild it.
No, sir, and that is the reason why the parish has contracted Roston. We guide them through the process and make sure that we stick within those guidelines to make sure to minimize the exposure financially of the parish.
So do you advise us as to what contracts we need to get into as far as professional services or the cost of professional service relative to construction services projects?
Yes, sir.
Because it seems as though a lot of this stuff, according to what it's $15 million in service, professional service, that's a lot.
Once again, the $50 million, I don't believe.
Now, I'm talking about the 50. I understand that.
Okay.
I got that.
Yes.
I'm trying to justify my support and trying to vote for $50 million.
So it is recommended for a professional party to do assessment of these facilities that were damaged. We have to ensure and prove to FEMA that these damages were caused by Ida. That's what could create an issue with the reimbursement if we were not able to prove to FEMA what was caused by Ida and what wasn't.
All projects that we are seeking support for has been accepted by FEMA.
There is no such a thing as an accepted by FEMA.
Approved by FEMA.
They will not pre-approve reimbursement for anything. They will not pre-approve a project.
But how will we get reimbursed? What we have to do, submit this to FEMA? Explain the process to me.
Yes, sir. There is a full book for the policy of what we need to stick to.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Yes, sir. There is a policy guidance book that FEMA has out, and that is basically our Bible to what we need to abide to stick with those parameters to make sure that the project and all the reimbursement it's eligible at the end of the project. But there is no process of pre-approval. We consult with FEMA, we consult with the state whenever there is any gray area.
So it's your responsibility to make sure we support all documents that is needed for reimbursement through FEMA of the project. That's your job.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I don't know the criteria, so I don't know what it takes.
I understand.
Because there are issues that we haven't received any money for, and there are issues that we have to wind up going to be paying back for. Because even though FEMA didn't approve this PW back in the days, now I'm just talking about back in the days, which I'm sure is the same concept here, but in different terminology or technology, whatever the terminology, is that it may not be approved. But yet they say it could be, but it may not. So everything is predicated on what you send. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be approved, does it?
Yes, sir.
All right.
There's something called the Code of Federal Regulations, and the Code of Federal Regulations spell out the procurement process that the federal government requires you to follow in order to have all these items reimbursed. And so when I was talking about earlier, even in the emergency process, what I was talking about earlier is with Mr. Gaffney and the help of Rostan, that's what we do. We make sure we follow the Code of Federal Regulations. And it's not really complicated. It's really about competitive bidding and a competitive process. And so every year you see us do RFPs for this process. We get prices, we get quotes, we review them, and sometimes you got multiple prices, but we go with the most responsible and the lowest bidder. And that way we can ensure and justify reimbursement to FEMA.
Still don't say they're going to pay. They still may have options out there that they can call discrepancies that they may not consider as being a primary factor.
Correct. Well, look, first of all, I'm not saying...
I'm not arguing about anything.
Yeah, no.
The law is the law, what it says.
And what I'm saying is...
In fact is what they say they're going to do. At the end of our presentation or proposal to them, they have to sit down and evaluate that whether they're going to approve or not approve.
Correct. I'm not saying it's a perfect system, and a lot of things have changed since Katrina, though, as well. And I know a lot of these issues go back to Katrina when it was more kind of a wild, wild west going on than what it is now. So what happened back then is a lot different than what we face today.
That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Roussel?
Yes. Coming up on 6 months since item. Do we have any obligated PWs standing today?
No, sir, not at this point. No, sir.
Obligated.
We have applied for the expedited PW, and we are hoping that it's coming down within the next month or so. But that is, it's a date set by FEMA as they go through their queues. There's no real way for me to give you an exact date on that when that would happen.
And the only way we'll be reimbursed is if the PW is obligated, correct?
Yes, sir.
But there is some, just to correct, there is some review process that goes on during that expedited period so that there's some justification or basis upon which they're going to forward you cash. So they have to be confident that if they're going to forward you cash, that what you did, while it didn't go through the formal process that we normally think of, you still have to prove to them that you followed all the other rules and procedures. Otherwise, they're not going to advance you whatever the potential advancement is.
It's not a blind process either, so we haven't experienced.
Let me say this. First of all, it's not an advancement, it's a reimbursement, correct?
So it is a reimbursement for the PWs that we have put in, which is for the work that already been completed.
Right.
This is for the emergency work.
And so it brings up another question. Do we still have ongoing contracts that are incurring cost?
Yes, sir. The debris removal contract is still ongoing.
Debris removal is still ongoing.
So, to come up here and ask, first of all, to borrow $50 million when you know you might not have the money, I think you need to reevaluate where we're at and stop some of this work. I mean,
We're at, the work was at 14, I think we were last at about what, 14? 14.2. There's a cap on debris removal at 15 million. So that's it. And quite frankly, honestly, I think, and we've heard from a lot of people in the public, we probably could have spent upwards of 20 million on debris removal. So the parish president made a decision that 15 was going to be it.
And other things, let's see, where do we remove debris so far? Do we do the levees?
Yes, sir.
Do we do the river batcher?
Yes, sir.
You see, when you start talking to me about paying contractors to remove debris off the river batcher and hauling it away, I just can't see it. I mean, there's no reason why you can't push marsh grass back into the marsh and not haul it away. Never mind. I just can't support going into debt $50 million, and I'm not going to elaborate anymore. Thank you.
You want to go now? Yeah. Mr. Dugas is here. He was part of the decision making process about what we did and why we did it. And so I think he has more insight than obviously me and the parish president about what we did and why we did it.
I mean, y'all have any questions regarding the debris removal that we hauled from the right-of-way, from levee, from canals, from streets?
Why we clean the levees before we clean the people's property? There's still people waiting for the
private property.
Private property debris removal, Mr. Cognitivich, is a totally separate animal.
Private too. I own that levee going to the 40 open line.
The levee is public. It's our responsibility. It's a public right of way. It is treated totally different than private property debris removal. It's not even, the FEMA doesn't even regulate it the same way.
So I can tell you, we finished cleaning up the right-of-way around Braithwaite subdivision in that area. The East Bank, to my knowledge, we're completely done on the East Bank, except solid waste is still going around and picking up debris that comes out. We did have a lot of marsh grass in the drainage canal from Braithwaite all the way down to White Ditch that we got rid of some of that marsh grass. The back levee, we had 3 feet of marsh grass on the back side, on the flood side of the levee, that we had to remove, because if you don't remove it, it decays on site, and what's going to happen? It's going to kill the grass that's holding the levee together. So you got to remove this debris. If not, you're looking at a levee that could be problematic when the next storm comes.
Doesn't salt water kill that anyway? I mean, salt water kills everything. If the salt water came up from the back, wouldn't it kill the grass on the back levee? I'm just asking.
No, typically be cutting the grass on the levee. The areas that we maintain, the levee bank, the flood side slope, and the protected side slope, we maintain, we cut grass. I mean, without the marsh grass being removed, you can't cut the grass. Without if the marsh grass just decays there, you're looking at a problem for future storms.
Can
Okay?
you tell us a little bit about how debris is routed after it's picked up? The parish has pits that we own that need to be filled in. We have a double standard. We charge other people, make other people put fences up, but we put this sediment, this sometimes really good hummus on private property. That's
debris sites you got to get them approved through DEQ or DOF.
Can't you do that for the parish pits?
You have to get these approved. You cannot dump. We tried to dump into the Walker Road borrow pits, and they would not let us dump in there because they had water. So we had to go through the process of pumping all the water out, which at the time we was cleaning. We was rocking and rolling with dynamic and solid waste.
Got it. I mean, it's a valuable thing. You're increasing the elevation of people's property around the parish, and we could be putting that on parish property and filling some places in. I mean, with some forethought and a little bit of work on the front end, and maybe getting our costs down. Does it cost us to put debris on other people's property? Are there costs associated with that?
We have sites that we had approved through DEQ and Department of Ag that we had put vegetation on for burning or composting.
And we pay for that, right?
If it was on our property, it was ours.
No,
we paid to haul it there, but not to dispose of it at the site.
For instance, near Grand Bayou Village, there's a big place where they're putting debris, right? Debris is being deposited between the River Road.
That wasn't our property. You're talking about Grand Bayou, about Foster Road.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
What's the deal with that? Are we paying to put debris there?
We paid to put debris there, yeah.
Why didn't you just say that in the question I asked instead of going around in circles?
No, you asked about parish property. You asked about borrow pits. So that's why I was sticking to there. So we did have a property on Foster Road that we paid. They had a composting site. We put marsh grass there.
So are you in charge of where that debris goes?
We make the decision based on the amount of debris that we have in the vicinity.
Who makes the decision on where that debris finally ends up? Who's we?
Team. We have a debris team.
Who's the debris team?
Well, to begin with, it starts Scott, me. We have Ross Stan. We have the contractors.
You're not friends with those people, huh? Where that debris going? Yeah.
The disposal.
I'm not running. I'm going to ask all the questions.
It's decided that at the end of the day, the contractor decides where he's going to dispose debris. That when the RFP is done, that fee is built in. So the parish is paying a price for removal, for disposal based on what was presented in the RFP. The contractor gets that money. He makes a decision based on distance, based on what's available, what DEQ has allowed or what's permitted in the Department of Ag. It's not like the parish pays a separate fee for disposal. It's built into the debris removal contractor's fee, and those are all looked at on a competitive basis.
I just want to make one more comment regarding the culverts in Ironton. That's another project that still has to be done. That's a debris project. Scott and them have been doing real good cleaning up the ditches in Ironton. So it's time for us to get the culverts clean so the water can drain. So I'm just, when you ask, Mr. Russo asked the question about additional work to be done, there's still work to be done. It's not going to be as costly as 15 million, but it is costly, so.
We need to be getting costs down at every corner. Here it is, about to borrow $50 million. You're putting mud on people's property. You're chummy with and stuff. It's ridiculous. This parish is ate up with these little things like this all over the place. There's thousands of them.
Well, do we have a pump truck to clean out the culverts? Is it working this week? 'Cause I wanted to buy a new one, but. Any other questions?
And I know this is a hot issue, but Mr. President, I gotta agree with you. The people did the work, you gotta pay them, man.
Burgard Turner, 161 East Bellevue, Port Sulphur. Couple of questions. I was taking some notes, and I think somebody already asked the question. PWs, has the council received a list of the PWs? We're talking 6 months later now. Still haven't received the PWs? Next question. What's obligated on the PWs that are obligated and non-obligated? Have you made a distinction as far as what's been paid? Has everything that you've paid, all of the contracts you've been paid, that has been paid, were those PWs obligated?
Mr. Turner's about 10 steps ahead of where we are. FEMA has not obligated or written any PWs yet. This is all assessment, preliminary work. There are no PWs yet.
Okay, no PWs? I find that amazing.
The applications are in requesting that PWs be written, but FEMA hasn't written any yet. That's where we are in the process. The parish doesn't decide that. That's FEMA's process.
So we've obligated this government. We've signed contracts outside of the initial emergency, that window.
No, contracts were all signed within the emergency window, and that's authorized by state statute, and that process has been in place for over a decade now.
I guess my concern is the expenditures that we've made without it being obligated. How do we justify it? I know the gentleman said that comes down the road.
You justify it because FEMA's not going to come out on day one of the hurricane and say, we're going to give you $50 million for all this. You used the guidance, you used the manuals, you used the policies and procedures that FEMA has in place. You follow those policies and procedures to the best of your ability. You make application to FEMA based on what you've done, and you follow their processes to get PWs obligated. If the parish president had to wait for FEMA to someone come down from FEMA on day one of the storm and say, wait a minute, we can't plug the levee, we can't respond to this, we can't rock the road, waiting on FEMA, nothing would get done. The parish would be a sitting duck. You'd have open levee holes, you wouldn't be able to access the pump stations. So this work has to be done. The processes are in place, and the parish government does its best to follow FEMA's procedures and guidelines and follow the PW process like we did in any other event and storm. And if the parish president didn't take the actions he's taken, let me tell you something. Hard Rock, I was woken up at midnight. That water was coming over the La Recite hump, and Naomi was going to be in big trouble. And you can ask the sheriff. The sheriff had his deputies knocking on doors in Naomi, waking people up in the middle of the night to evacuate. And thank God, Hard Rock was on site, and our people were on site making sure that water did not come over La Recite. And if we wouldn't have engaged Hard Rock to do that, you think $50 million is a lot of money? If Jesuit Bend and Naomi would have flooded, you would have been talking about double, triple the damages. So the parish president acts on the authority given to him by state statutes, and we do everything we can to ensure that it's obligated and done properly pursuant to FEMA so that we are reimbursed. But there are no guarantees made in advance of any storm.
Just for the record, we're talking about two different things, and the two different things we're talking about, you're speaking of the initial response, right? And we know that the parish president has to make that initial response. We're not talking about waiting, but we're talking about after that initial response, if we continue to incur debt without having the funding for it, then that's a problem. Not the initial response.
Well, this is all we're talking about. The initial response was 20 million, was roughly
Okay.
20 million. That's debris removal, that's cutting the levees, that's plugging the levees, that's putting a rock on the levees, that's putting rock on the access to the pump station so that we could access them, we can refuel them. That's cost associated with fueling the pump stations and keeping them going. That's cost of Hard Rock's people doing the sandbagging, and that's parish employees. FEMA pays for that, and that's all of the overtime and all of the stuff given. So what we're talking about now, the 20 million is the emergency. The reason the number is higher than 20 million is because all the building assessments and everything, all the additional permanent work that we need to be done is factored into this number. So it's not, the parish didn't do 50 million of emergency work. The parish did 20 million of emergency work, but the loan and the ongoing process would be if the council decides they want to move forward on those projects, they can move forward on those projects in the future because the bond commission will have authorized us to borrow whatever we need to borrow. If they decide they don't want to make the improvements, they don't want to improve the Point Celeste pump station, they don't want to rebuild a building that might have been destroyed, then that's going to be their prerogative and we won't do it. And we won't put up the 10% cost share and we'll tell FEMA, thank you, we don't want the money. We don't need the money.
It was stated that the first 45 days FEMA will cover 100%.
Correct.
Right? So we're not talking about that initial response that we know FEMA is going to cover. What we're talking about is the part that we don't know whether or not they're going to cover it. That's what's in question. And then also of not knowing what's going to be covered to the point that Mr. Bartholomew brought up. And that's why they had obligated and non-obligated PWs. Mr. Gouy would remember that, everybody who was here during Katrina. And you know that, right? And if it wasn't obligated, you couldn't show it as a budget that you could spend. Now, I'm not talking about the initial response. I'm talking about if there were any spending that took place after that. Spending with not knowing whether money would be reimbursed or not, or where it would be coming from. That's what I'm asking.
We haven't done any of that spending.
Okay.
We haven't done any of that spending. There was some emergency spending that happened in the 90-10 window, but it was still emergency spending. It was still debris removal. It was still responding to the emergency at hand. The only other spending that was done was a few assessments on the Port Sulphur water plant, and I think one or two of the pump stations, we've done some assessments on that. But that's required in order to get you in the queue. So the parish government has not expended money on non-emergency matters.
Now, but wait a while. After that initial response, right? After the initial response, then we shouldn't be spending money unless we know it's going to be obligated. Because you don't know, as Mr. Bartholomew stated, you don't know if it's going to be reimbursed. And if it's not reimbursed, then you're left on the hook.
But that exists with every expense. You're saying, oh, you know you're going to be expended, you're going to be reimbursed 100%, whether it's on a 100% window. You don't know that at all. Because FEMA hasn't committed anything. All we can do is follow the rules and procedures set in place by FEMA so that we can do the best of our ability to ensure reimbursement based on what Congress has authorized and allowed us to be reimbursed on.
Rennie, you and I both know that FEMA, that they will obligate these PWs even as you're going along and you're still fighting to get them obligated.
Correct.
Right? So it's not after the fact, like the gentleman was saying, that they don't commit to it, because they will commit in advance. As soon as you submit the paperwork, you're getting PWs obligated all along the way. And today, if we don't have any of them obligated, that's a problem.
That's because
6 months later, if they're not obligated, that's a problem.
That's because FEMA hasn't even written them yet. So that is what it is. I mean, there's nothing Our FEMA managers have told you that we are confident that all of what we did was in compliance with federal rules and regulations, and that we will be reimbursed 100 to 90%. And that's true from day one of the hurricane to as we sit here today in this chair.
Does FEMA write the PWs, or the parish writes it and submits it to FEMA?
We're submitting them.
That's right.
Thank you.
We have submitted them, but it's in the queue. FEMA just hasn't obligated them yet.
Here's the only concern I have, and then I'm going to step down. It's committing the parish to funding outside the initial emergency, not knowing, once the initial emergency is over with, right? Once you've taken care of all of the life threats, if we continue to spend money hoping and expecting FEMA to reimburse us without the assurance, then that becomes a problem. And the reason I say that, because I remember, and Mike Gaffney was in the meeting. There was a meeting that was held with FEMA. This was during Katrina. And we were told that you can't spend money that's not obligated. You can't spend it that's not obligated. And so if money was spent, I'm talking about after the initial response. Because what they said was if it's obligated, you can show it as part of the budget so that you can cover it. And if you can't show it as part of the budget, then what money are you spending? And how do you spend, how does the administration spend money, the government's money, without it being in a budget? The way you cover that during a hurricane is through the obligation or that initial response where we know FEMA will cover it. So my only point is if we've spent money after the initial response, without it being obligated, that's a problem. That's a major problem.
Thank you. What's your wish? You want to defer and work some more on it, or y'all want to vote now?
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think we need to vote on it because we're under a timeline. I think Mr. Akers could answer that because it has to go to the bond commission in February.
The State Bond Commission deadline for the March meeting is next week. So if it was to be deferred, it wouldn't be able to be heard until the April meeting, which is going to push your availability of funds further.
And once again, this is just the authorization to go to the bond commission and ask to see if we even qualify for the money. It's not, it does not, we could have that done and then nothing happen, or you guys can say, the hell with it, we're not going to do any of this. But this is just to get approval to go to the bond commission and ask if we can qualify for such a loan. So the administration's asking that we at least move forward, see if we qualified. Actually, we're behind the 8-ball because how many other parishes have already done this? About 15 or 17 have already done it. Actually, a few of them did it back in October. So we're asking to at least let the bond commission provide us the authority, and then you guys can make the decision at the next step to decide what, if anything, you will allow us to go out and do.
All right, we'll call a question. Machine's open. It fails 5-4. Can we go to 9R?
9R, a resolution giving supplemental approval to the issuance of not to exceed $45 million aggregate principal amount of revenue refunding bonds of the Parish of Plaquemines, State of Louisiana, and providing for other matters in connection therewith. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer, ask for a second.
Second.
Mr. Roussel seconds. Y'all want to come up and explain it?
Yeah, this is a little bit more favorable discussion.
Is it? Thank you, Jason Akers with Foley & Udell, Bond Counsel, Lee Bressler with Raymond James, underwriter and placement agent. This is a refunding of outstanding debt. Mr. Blink, this goes to the $95 million that we spoke of earlier. It's an opportunity to take advantage of favorable market conditions to lower the overall debt service that's currently being paid without extending the debt. I want to be clear that the final maturity currently is in 2042. The final maturity will stay in 2042. But however, taking advantage of the lower interest rates, we would have the opportunity to lower your debt service overall over the remaining life. We'd also shift some of that burden that's currently in what we call lawfully available funds, which means any revenues available to the parish, to a specific pledge of the sales tax, which would be more favorable to bondholders going forward. This also is just a preliminary approval to go to the State Bond Commission. In the meantime, with following State Bond Commission approval, we'll work on marketing and provide an opportunity for you to give a final approval down the road in a couple of months. But Lee might be able to give you a little more color as to what the conditions would look like.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, we're several months off from being able to sell the bonds through the approval process. We're not sure. Interest rates are starting to tick up, so we're not sure what we're going to be facing at that point in time. But it was very attractive a month or so ago. We just legally we couldn't do it then, so we're just trying to get ready and see where we are and make sure the savings are worthwhile to proceed.
In our initial discussions, we talked about possibly saving $5 million.
That was what it would look like when we did talk, but that's been a few weeks, and lots has happened in the market with the Federal Reserve and other things, inflation that's working against you. But we're hoping usually whenever it goes up, comes back down. We're hoping to get a bounce and be ready when we're ready to do something.
This is the kind of bond issue that I can support when it does not extend the term of the loan and it does not cost us any money, and actually, including your fees, saves us money. And as we talked about, $5 million, so I support the resolution.
Mr. Blank?
Yeah, sure. Since this is going to be tied with sales tax, we have several large projects that are underway in the parish, and it could be conservative to say that we're expecting a little bit of a bump in sales tax. Is it possible, if this board approves, to pay off a little bit more, a little faster, if that income starts to flow on this loan?
Well, normally the new bonds will have, let's say, 10 years of call protection, so it's hard to pay it off early. You do have outstanding bond issues of sales taxes that will become callable, and you would theoretically be able to use that. But again, the sales taxes will flow through and then go into your bottom line, and then there'll be opportunities if you do want to try to prepay the debt or defease the debt, but that's up to you guys.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Council, administration, audience? Machine's open. It passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Start back on the agenda, please.
Agenda item 4A, update by charter directors, old business and new business.
There are none.
Hold on.
Hold up.
Mr. Eppley,
Yes, sir.
I had visited the Post Alpha Library last week, and I noticed there was several issues with it. Did the contractor, did they finish the punch-out list? Because there are some things wrong that need to be done by that building.
The contractor did finish the punch-out list, yes, sir.
But there are still some issues over there.
Okay, I'll be happy to get with the library team and walk through the building and find out what the issues are. I've not been made aware of any issues, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Next item.
Item 5, bids and advertisements, there are none. 6, beer and liquor licenses, there are none. We have construction permits. Would you like to take these in globo?
Yes, ma'am.
7A1, Phillips 66 Alliance Refinery, application number 2021-952, dated December 28, 2021. Remove and replace sheet pile of miscellaneous earthwork. 15551 Highway 23, Alliance Refinery, Councilmember LaFrance. And 7A2, Whitney Oil and Gas LLC, application number 2022-47, dated January 14th, 2022. Installed 2 4-inch flow lines, Garden Island Bay. Councilmember Bartholomew.
Offer.
Mr. Bartholomew offers. There a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Newberry. Any questions? Machines are open. And it passes 6 with 1 abstention.
As Councilmembers Black and
Let-
Alborough left,
Let the record show Councilmember Alborough and Black have stepped out. Don't know if they left. Next item.
Item 8, introduction of ordinances and resolutions. I have a few. The first are for Councilmember Konovich. An ordinance to amend the 2022 manpower structure and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to establish divided precincts within Plaquemines Parish and to adopt a redistricting plan for the Plaquemines Parish Council and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2022 Library Services Fund operating expenditure budget, Libraries General Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2022 General Fund operating expenditure budget, Legal Judgments Department for final judgment settlements of outstanding legal settlement cases, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance creating a temporary moratorium on new residential subdivisions, residential re-subdivisions, and new zoning classification changes for residential development for 6 or more lots for the areas from Jesuit Bend to the boundaries between Plaquemines, Jefferson, and Orleans parishes for a period of 12 months, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next is for Councilmember Bartholomew. An ordinance to amend the 2022 General Fund operating expenditure budget, Maintenance Dave Aunt Percy Griffin Center Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Another for Councilmember Bartholomew, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, Restore Act East Bank Land Bridge Project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And the last is for Councilmember Arborough, a resolution authorizing the parish president or his designee to do all things necessary and proper to negotiate, execute, perfect, and enforce a cooperative endeavor agreement with the Plaquemines Parish Heritage and Seafood Festival, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And that is it.
Thank you.
Moving to 9A1, an ordinance authorizing and directing the parish president to do all things necessary to accept the donation of Coast Guard Road, Venice, Louisiana, from its beginning at Tidewater Road to its terminus, the boundaries of which are more particularly identified on Exhibit A, attached hereto, as a public road and utility servitude, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Gouy. Yes, this is about Coast Guard Road. I need Mr. Burris or Mr. Lapine to give me your input on this.
What would you like to know, Mr. Konovich? It's your guys' decision if you decide to accept.
We make decisions, and not to do the Orchard study, you did it anyway.
Okay.
Y'all let somebody go on the LSU experimental station and do surveying and all, but we didn't vote for that, so y'all made that decision, so I need y'all help making a decision.
We don't have no comment, Mr.
What about you, Mr. Burris?
What you just discussed was apples and oranges. Allowing somebody temporary permission to do something on
Does the council
property
make that
is not the same. We've never done that. We've never gotten council approval to let some.
On the Orchard study.
No, but there was money in the budget for that, sir. You don't. The council doesn't. The council doesn't pass an ordinance for every contract.
You went by the company to do the research, so what did they tell you? And what's your opinion? You the parish attorney.
I've told you, first of all, if you all vote no, it's potentially going to end up in litigation, and I think it's inappropriate for me to give my legal advice in a public forum. I've given you my legal advice behind closed doors. It hasn't changed, and it's a policy decision by the council. The charter says the council determines what's public, what's private, not the parish attorney.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Council? Audience? Machines open. And it fails 4-5.
(9A2), 9A2, an ordinance to amend Section 12, Amendments and Petitions of Ordinance Number 142, a comprehensive zoning ordinance, to authorize the Plaquemines Parish Council to establish rules, regulations, procedures, and requirements for the issuance of temporary permits for the placement and the operation of RV parks, RV sites, campgrounds, and other temporary housing units or facilities in any zoning district, and temporarily suspend any and all map changes, requirements related thereto, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember LaFrance.
LaFrance, you offer?
I'll offer for discussion.
Mr. LaFrance offers for discussion. I'll second. Mr. LaFrance?
Yes, this proposal, the ordinance that we had met with administration and several council members, was to allow travel trailers going on to private property. The construction workers that's coming from Eventual Global. And what we discussed at that meeting is something totally different than what I've been presented to. These are a lot of the changes that they had made. And I'm here to let you know, if everybody on the southern end, if they can't put travel trailers on their property, I'm not going to support it. But this is an opportunity, and I must say that my first idea wasn't to put travel trailers on property. My proposal really was to put travel trailers in Diamond Park. We had used Diamond Park for Hurricane Katrina. We had 450 trailers there. But however, speaking to Mr. Bob Bender, the owner from Venture Global, his proposal was for us to allow travel trailers, his construction workers, to be placed all through the community. He wanted everyone to get a piece of the pie. He wanted to spread the wealth out. But like I said, I wanted that Diamond Park. I have one of the largest parks in the parish, but I have nothing in the parish. I mean, I have nothing in the park. And that was an opportunity to make a few dollars for the park. I spoke to Mr. Ken Dugas when I called, and I spoke to you, and I told you that I had three different individuals that wanted to make a proposal about placing travel trailers in Diamond Park. But I needed one set of plans where we could compare apple to apple and orange to orange. Until today, I didn't get a response from you. I don't know if you was busy, you was out, or what. But do you remember that conversation?
I do, indeed. I believe I sent the surveys. We looked for the old plans from the Katrina Park, and I believe I could not locate the actual alignment of those RV spaces, but I did send surveys. I can look at my emails and find out. I don't know if it went to your office or if it went to your vendor, one of your contractors you were talking to. I don't remember.
Yeah, because
I did send out 2 surveys of the property.
There was 3 different vendors that wanted to make a proposal, but it didn't happen. So again, we wanted to allow people on the southern end to put travel trailers on their property. And when I went to the zoning board hearing, there was several different changes to the ordinance that I had proposed. And again, and if it's not going to allow everyone to place travel trailers on their property, I'm not going to move with it. At this time, I will ask Mr. Konovich. Yes. You had a conversation with Mr. Bob Bender. Could you relate to us what he spoke to you, what he told you?
Which time? Yeah. I know he's not happy with the port administration.
And he told you if he wouldn't be so far
into the process, he might have left.
He would have left. Now, here we are. We want the plant, but we don't want the construction workers. How can you get a plant without the construction workers? You have to provide a place for the construction workers. And placing them on the southern end because the council members on the northern end don't want it. And the only thing really that we really can offer the construction workers on the southern end is to say you able to get to work without traffic. That's about the only thing you can offer. Now on the southern end, they're dying off. There's very little economics that's going on, but yet we come up with all kind of obstacles for the people, you know. So a man told me one time, if the government don't want to help the people, then the government doesn't work for the people. And I yield.
Mr. Roussel?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, the Diamond Park is an opportunity to make some revenue, and I would hope that the engineering department, legal department would come up with some proposal that we could put on the market to try to raise some money. You know, we could probably get $250,000 a year or more out of that facility, if we just did half of the park. So there is a money-making opportunity there. And, my frustration has been that we don't take up opportunities that we have and capitalize on them. And, that I guess it showed today in the vote about going into the debt. There's too many opportunities that we miss, that we don't take advantage of. This is one that I think that should be looked at.
Dr. Gouy?
What Mr. LaFrance said is true, that we have to have a place to put people. And the ideal place to help the economy in the southern end of the parish this is one way to do it. As I looked at this ordinance, though, it really doesn't say much other than we're going to do something. There's nothing specific. Are the specifics already in the code?
So you're talking about two separate issues. You're talking about what's in the zoning book and what's allowed under the zoning rules and regulations, which have to follow a certain process and procedure through the development board. And that's what this ordinance was. This ordinance was to say that whenever the council determined that there's a need for temporary housing, that south of St. Jude, it would be allowed and that temporary RV parks would be permitted for no more than 3 years. We have been going back and forth on discussions about what the infrastructure situation would look like. So what this would do is any person on any lot that's not in a floodplain south of St. Jude could put 2 RV parks on their property. I think the current law is if it's more than 2, you have to follow certain infrastructure rules and procedures. Some exemptions, some tweaks to that, but it's my understanding that Ms. Amitra was working on drafting what I would call the infrastructure regulations and the permit regulations for that. And then the council's got to make a decision about, do you want the administration just to issue these? Does the council want to approve every single one? How involved does the council want to be on how big these parks are their limitations, how many total we're going to issue, all of that. That is separate, though. Those are what I would call regulatory issues. What you have before you now is the first step, which is a big step, which basically says anytime you all want to issue temporary RV park permits, the applicant doesn't have to go through the zoning board process. In other words, you don't have to rezone the property, right? You all will have the authority to grant that pursuant to ordinance, and then whatever the rules and regulations are would exist at the time is what they would be. And it's my understanding that Ms. Amitra thought that that basically the current rules for RV parks really should apply in the same situation that you would currently have on a permanent park would also apply for the temporary parks. And then the applicant would need to make a decision, or the person interested in doing that would have to make a decision whether or not a temporary 3-year permit to put the money in for that infrastructure would be worth it to them or not. But when I was having initial discussions with Mr. Carlton, Mr. LaFrance, I think the idea was, as he said, spread out the wealth and not have, 2 big RV parks. It was to allow this person to put 2 trailers, this person to put 2 trailers, and then that way you have more property owners who are, benefiting from the workers on the lower end.
Well, I agree with that concept. So what you're telling me is that we already have that on the books. RVs per lot.
Correct.
Whatever specifics are as far as space and infrastructure. So we already have that.
Right, because we have rules and regulations for what I would call permanent trailer parks, right? Someone who would go through their zoning process, get their property zoned MH, And then if they want to do more than 2 parks, which MH, otherwise you don't rezone to MH, we have rules and you have to have a driveway, you have to have the proper hookups, and so we would make, obviously, the temporary trailer parks, to the extent somebody wanted to put more than 2 on their property, follow those rules and regulations as well. And it's your typical health and safety codes.
So I don't see the problem, since we have the specifics in place, and I think it would satisfy the needs of multiple people, the ones who could just do 2, the ones who go through the process of making more than 2. There's a process for that.
Correct. So what I envisioned was, if this ordinance passed, we would pass another ordinance where you all would declare a temporary housing need exists in Plaquemines Parish. Boom. And then it would say, here are the rules and regulations. You follow the existing ordinances, and Ms. Amitra may have 1 or 2 exceptions, and that would be in an ordinance, and then that's it. And the council could say, administration, y'all issue the permits. Or if you all wanted to approve every individual permit, well, then that would be up to y'all, and y'all would have to put that in the ordinance.
Okay.
Dr. Good, the problem what we're running into is line 54.
Line 54?
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance, I don't think they have.
I've only got 32 lines.
I think you have the substitution, right?
Because we don't have that.
Oh,
We're not
okay.
voting today anyway.
No.
While we're at this point, though, I would hope that the administration looks at the Diamond Park and tries to come up with a proposal for us to put on the market, because Venture Global does not want to be in the housing business, but they need housing.
Well, let me tell you something. I asked Mr. AJ directly, what do you need from parish government if you need anything? His answer was nothing. He told me nothing. I don't need anything. And so, without knowing specifics from Venture Global about what their needs are, what they're looking for, I specifically asked him what to do. Mr. LaFrance brought up this ordinance about trailer parks and RVs, and it was my impression, you can correct me if I'm wrong in what your impression, well, let me tell you the impression I got, was that you were interested in spreading the wealth. You didn't want one vendor in one location making tons of money, or, however you visualize it. You envisioned that there would be multiple property owners from St. Jude South who would be able to benefit from this program. And so no one's told me any different. I mean, I've heard from AJ, we don't need Diamond Park. We don't want to be involved in this business. And then I heard from Mr. LaFrance that what's being presented today is what the council was interested in doing.
Let me just clear this up in my mind. AJ will tell you they don't want to be in the housing. And that's why they stay away from it, because too many people have used Venture Global's name to go around trying to market themselves.
Yep.
Venture Global does not want to be in the housing business. They are in the LNG business. However, they admit that they do need housing wherever the workers are going to stay, and they don't have a problem with people staying in the southern end, and as Mr. LaFrance said, throughout the community. So, I'm not interested in seeing somebody come to Diamond Park and make a ton of money, except the government, who owns the property. And so I'm hoping that you can structure something that we can put that property into commerce and make a ton of money.
Well, the legal department has no objections to any of that. I mean, the council's got to say, it's never been relayed to me that that's absolutely what you guys want to do. Number one, we got to determine, and like you say, it would have to be structured a deal, because my understanding from Mr. Dugas is the infrastructure there is all messed up. It's not like, it was when Katrina wasn't there. So there has to be a deal where somebody comes in, makes the improvements, or we make the improvements. I mean,
whatever it takes to get the property into commerce, we need to put a proposal together and let the proposer make the proposal.
I'm fine with that.
And so the point is, Venture Global will not do it. They're not interested in getting into the business. But we all know there will be an influx of people that will need housing. And the more we can put in the southern end, the better we are. And if on parish property, the better than we are.
And I hear what you're saying. I just want to know that what was represented to me, from the most part, from council members, was what was before you all today, and that was the priority. The priority was getting trailers spread as much as possible through the southern end than using a facility like Diamond Park. And if that's changed, then if it's changed, that's fine. Or if we're going to do both, We're fine with that too.
Anybody that has an objection can speak up now, because I don't know that we've made any effort to make Diamond Park a success. There are some infrastructure there with minimal effort could be utilized. I see it every time I pass there. So I think that we can put maybe 40 or 50 sites, however many are there with the white electrical poles sticking up, whatever they are. They're already in place. With some minor improvements, we could begin. Now, if y'all think something different, then let's speak up. But I think we need to move in a direction.
Ms. Newberry?
Yeah, I have to agree with Mr. Roussel on that. We need to generate revenue, and that's a good source. I have been in those meetings, a couple of meetings, Rennie, as you know. I don't think I have a copy of the substitution that he's looking at because we just having a discussion today. But and I think Dr. Gouy said he would support St. Jude South. I don't have a problem spreading the wealth to the south end, but what we need to be careful is how we word legislation, because you got to realize in the southern end, they do have residential areas and they do have families. So it's not like, we can really agree for a neighbor to have a trailer and you don't even know what kind of out-of-towners you're getting. He could be a registered sex offender, and we don't know that. So those are things that we need to be really careful about. And I don't think the council should be getting blamed on something like that. So we need to figure out how to work this out. So I think that Diamond Park would be a good option. That's my opinion.
Roussel? Any other questions? This item's deferred.
Item 9A3, an ordinance to declare lots 19, 32, 38, and 39, Square 152, South New Orleans subdivision, jointly owned by Jefferson Parish and Plaquemines Parish, and located in Jefferson Parish, no longer needed for a public purpose, and authorizing a sale to the adjacent property owner, Julie Chi Lee Trong, for the appraised value, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer, ask for a second. Second by Mr. Roussel. Mr. Burris, this is just surplus property we're getting rid of, right? In Jefferson Parish.
Yes, sir. These are lots that somehow we ended up owning jointly, I believe, with Jefferson Parish, in Jefferson Parish off of Manhattan Boulevard.
Thank you. Any other questions? Council, audience, machine's open. It passed 8-0. Can we go to 9H?
An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, Oakville to La Receipt back levy project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Newberry.
Ms. Newberry offers there a second. Second by Mr. Roussel. Ms. Newberry.
Yeah, of course, the bids came, as y'all remember, we accepted $10 million from CPRA to build that back levee in Jesuit Bend, and the bids came back over the price that was given to us by CPRA. So this is just an additional funding that CPRA was willing to give the parish because of the low bid. So this is accepting the over bid.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? Administration, audience, machine's open. That passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Back to 9A4.
Item 9A4, an ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision by Hoon Family LLC Elmwood Subdivision Industrial Sites, Section D, Jefferson and Plaquemines Parish, Lot B1G into B1M and B1N, Section 30, T14S, R24E, Southeastern District of Louisiana, west of the Mississippi River, Belchase, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on the plans and plat of survey by Dufresne Surveying and Engineering, Inc., dated May 4th, 2021. The owner have fulfilled all the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Black.
Mr. Black offers there a second. Second by Mr. Alborough. Mr. Black, any questions from the council, administration, audience? Machine's open. Passes 8-0.
Item 9A5, an ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of the lots 6-A-1, Champion Citrus Company subdivision, Section 1, T20S, R30E, Southeastern District of Louisiana, west of the Mississippi River, Triumph, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, into lots 6-A-1A, 6-A-1B, 6-A-1C, and 6-A-1D, Champion Citrus Company subdivision, Section 1, T20S, R30E, Southeastern District of Louisiana, west of the Mississippi River, Triumph, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on the pan and plat of survey by Dufresne Surveying and Engineering, Inc., dated November 4th, 2021, revised January 25th, 2022, the owner having fulfilled all the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer. Ask for a second. Second by Dr. Gooley. This is just subdividing property that people already live on. Any questions from the council, administration, audience? Machine's open.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. LaFrance.
Verbal, yes.
Passes 8-0.
Item 9B, an ordinance to amend the 2022 Road Maintenance Fund operating expenditure budget, Road Maintenance Public Right-of-Way Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer. Ask for a second. Second by Mr. Blink. On the back pages, you'll see all the information and where I got it from. 5115M four-wheel drive tractors with big 15-foot bush hogs. Any questions? Administration?
Mr. Konovich, we appreciate this. The concern I have is, it's designated in the ordinance what machinery to buy. Did you talk over with my prom superintendent of what machinery to buy?
Yes, I talked to Bradley, and
This is what he asked you to buy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because there's a little discrepancy that's not true. But again, in Section 2, I would like you to try to omit that because I think it's administrative duty. You appropriate the money, we'll find to get the tractors. My goal is to get tractors on availability because if this company can't provide me a tractor for a year, this is useless.
He said you get him the PO, he'll have it in.
Well, that's your conversation, right? But
I'm ready to, that's the tractors they wanted. I don't know what Bradley told y'all, but we talked about it with Scott.
No.
I think the only difference is the bush hogs he was talking about. The tractor's fine, but the bush hogs and the tires, they had foam tires. They don't use the foam tires.
These are the airplane tires.
Okay.
That Bradley wanted.
Okay. So we just want to make sure that the tractor and the bush hogs the proper ones. That's all.
Ms. Newberry?
So these went out for a quote, as I read here on line 6,
Yep.
through the parish?
That's part of the problem with Section 2. The purchasing agent follows state law when it comes to purchasing specific items. That's what we have to do. So if and I don't know whether it comports with state law or not. I mean, I haven't been involved in this process,
They all
but
state bid, so.
we state the purchasing agent follows state law, and that's what we do when we purchase items. And it's very irregular for the council to come in and say, we're buying piece of equipment A, B, and C without the purchasing agent, at least to our knowledge, having verified that comports with what her duties and responsibilities are to ensure we're complying with state law.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I'm not certain why we're getting involved in the administration's job, but Scott, is this, first of all, do you have people operate these machines?
Yes, it would get rid of some of the older tractors that we have, yes.
And this is your recommendation?
Yes, sir.
The entirety of it?
On the tractors, yes, sir. We need tractors to be able to keep the grass cut. Hopefully, we can stay up with it. I mean, we down 8, 9 people in that department, but.
All right, so, I mean, renting, I'm trying to defend y'all here, but your director of operations is saying that he approved it.
It's not the issue of what's being requested and whether or not we can honor it. It's saying who we have to buy from without letting the purchasing agent do her job and determine whether or not we're purchasing it in a way that comports with state law. Now, she may do her job, and it very well may be that Sunshine Equipment is who we buy from. But that order is in reverse. I mean, so if you guys have a preference and she does her purchasing process and they are indeed the lowest bidder, then she's going to do that. She'll pursue that. But for you all to put it in the ordinance
Who
when,
drafted this ordinance?
huh?
Who drafted this? Does your office do it?
No, Mr. Kognovich did. So that's what I'm saying. We have to purchase.
If it's on state bid, everybody's going to have the tractor for the same price.
What I'm saying, Mr. Kognovich, is that is a job for the purchasing agent. She's the expert. We rely on her. And what I'm saying is if she does.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but he's obviously consulted with Scott. Scott, your office evidently did not speak about the process.
It doesn't matter. The process.
It does matter. It does matter. It all matters.
Okay, but wait a minute. He might have said what kind of tractors we need. Okay, he might have suggested that if we had a conversation, but then it doesn't say to go to Sunshine. Okay, it might just say the model or type that we need, but this is directing me to go to Sunshine and buy directly from Sunshine.
You got a problem with Sunshine?
Mr. Russo, I don't have a problem with anyone, okay? But my goal is to get the tractors fast as I can and availability. That's what I need.
Look.
Okay?
I'll go ahead and take it out, but.
Then I can't vote for it because I can't trust y'all to do what's right.
What's that?
What's right?
What I said was, he did his due diligence. And I can't believe that y'all are putting up a fight over appropriation of tractors before cutting the grass season is upon us.
It's the law, Mr. Russo. Brenda, it's just like everything else. Brenda follows state law when it comes to purchasing equipment. And what I'm telling you is, if she follows state law in Sunshine and she can lawfully buy these following state law, then she'll buy it. But that's up to her. You guys can't say, oh, well, go buy $1 million rocket when there's a $100,000 rocket available because it doesn't comply with state law.
Let me say this one more time. I believe that it complies with state law. If it doesn't comply with state law, then you veto it and come back to us. Because it doesn't meet what you want it to meet, doesn't mean that it doesn't comply with state law. So that argument is out the window.
So what is the difference between this and when we bought the motor grader?
The what?
What is the difference when we bought the motor grader? It was the same thing.
But you didn't designate where we buying the motor grader from. You gave us money to go out and get a motor grader, which we searched, just like we did with Brenda Stanford. We did with her, and she found the best one.
We have a purchasing agent. She needs to do her job. That's all we're saying. And that's until this ordinance, that's how we've operated for 3 years. That's how the government has operated since eternity. I mean, it's not a new, it's not.
The problem is this. The purchasing agent can buy a different variety of things under state law. This is the project or the product that we want to see on the road. This product.
The product is not specified in the ordinance. The product says tractors and mowers. So if there's a specific product you want, 18-inch, whatever, that's.
Just read the back of it. It's right in there.
The only product, the wrong thing with the product is the bush hog. I think Brad said that product was not the proper one that they usually buy. So we will check it out and make sure that everything is right and buy the right part to the tractor. That's all it is. It's the back wing.
He told me that, and I called the people and had it assured that was what Brad wanted.
Okay.
Can we legally do this?
Absolutely.
Can they
Legally do this without going out for an RFQ?
We on state bid.
I'm just asking.
What I'm saying is, never mind. I can't.
So with the papers on the back,
What I'm telling you is, I'm going to tell Brenda Stanifer to do her job. If it doesn't comply with state law, we're not doing it. Because Brenda Stanifer isn't going to purchase something that don't comply with state law. If what you and Mr. Roussel are saying is right and accurate, and it complies with state law, well, then she'll buy the thing. But I'm saying this is not how we normally do things.
5115M John Deere. You're not going to look at any other tractor.
The tractor's right. The bush hog.
We're talking past one another.
He's already corrected the problem with the bush hog by calling the vendor.
I'll take 26 out, and I want to put in John Deere 5115M tractor. And with that change, I'll ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Roussel. Mr. Blink?
Sure. Some of these older tractors that these are going to be replacing, if some of those machines are still in serviceable condition, is it possible to get those assigned to maybe the shipyard or some of the pumping stations, to where maybe those guys could hop on them, from time to time and kind of get around their area to just kind of keep it, a little nicer?
Yes.
And spread the load?
Do that. That'll give us time to work on the tractor when the new ones are running, and work on another tractor and get it all updated and get it going again. And yes, we can do that. The shipyards have tractors, but we'll work on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah.
Do I have to vote on the changes?
You offer it with changes, no. You make an amendment, yes.
All right, machines are open on the amendment.
You offer it.
And Mr. Roussel seconded. Machines are open on the amendment. It passes 5-2 with one abstention. Now, vote on buying the tractors.
9B, an ordinance.
No.
Ordinance is amended.
Question.
Yes, sir.
No, call it.
Questions called, machines are open. Passes 5-2 with one abstention.
Item 9C, an ordinance to amend the 2022 General Fund and Road Maintenance Fund, Revenue and Operating Expenditure Budgets, Engineering and Public Works Department, and Road Maintenance Public Right-of-Way Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich. And this is offered with changes.
I'll offer and ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Roussel. Can you read the changes?
On line 20, under amendment, take out $46,110 and put in $49,925. On line 27, under the amendment, take out $12,690 and put in $8,875. On line 36, under amendment, take out $46,110 and put in $49,925. And on 43, under the amendment column, take out $12,690 and put in $8,875.
This comes from the local government assistant program grant, and this is the equipment the parish wanted. Any other questions? Administration, audience, machines open. It passes 8-0.
Mr. Chairman, a point of order.
Yes.
The last ordinance was taking money out of the BP fund to buy the tractors,
Yes.
so it failed because it didn't have 6 votes. So now you have no tractors. So when the grass cutting season comes up and you can't cut the grass, remember that you fought the tractor battle right here.
But also remember, since Mr. Russo was going to bring that up, that this council appropriated $300,000 to go to a company that you guys went out and got RFQs for, accepted the contract to cut grass from Russell Drive to Venice in the median and on both sides of the highway. And days before you signed the contract, this council then reversed that appropriation and took the money from the contract, which would have got the grass cut year round. So that's not
year round.
How many cuts?
One cut.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I asked for a point of order to clarify something, not to get back into.
Don't try to throw shade without taking it.
Well, when you want a point of order, didn't ask for it, Mr. Black. But my point of order is relevant to what it is.
I yield.
Next item.
Item 9D, a resolution authorizing and directing the parish president or his designee to do all things necessary and proper to either lease or sell port eads and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Bartholomew.
Mr. Bartholomew asks that this be withdrawn.
I thought it was be withdrawn. All right.
Item 9E, an ordinance to amend the 2022 Public Health Fund Revenue and Operating Expenditure Budgets, Animal Control Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Roussel. This is a grant for the animal control.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Any other questions from the council?
Just to elaborate on it, we met with the SPCA today, and we asked them about this, but they weren't familiar with it. Could you tell us what the grant is going to be used for?
This grant is through ASPCA. The Health Department Superintendent applied for it right around the time of the storm. His thoughts were he wanted some new computer equipment and an airboat to help round up animals and to manage animals in the event of a storm. This is what he asked for. That's what was which was granted.
An airboat?
That's what he asked for. Yes, sir.
We got to buy an airboat?
Yeah, that's what the grant's for. I want to see Raymond driving that airboat.
I'll let him know that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, while we're on the topic, Randy, can you send an email to the council updating us on the litigation?
What about what?
What?
Say that again. I couldn't hear you. Something about, I heard the word litigation.
Yeah, we talked about this at the meeting today. Just give us an email with an update on the litigation.
We're going to put it on executive session for the next council meeting.
You talked to everybody, Benny?
Yeah.
No.
We talked to Jacques.
Okay, all right, cool.
Any questions from the audience? Machines are open. Passes 8-0.
Item 9F, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan expansion LA 406 project and the F. Edward A. Bear realignment of LA 406 project and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Black.
Offer.
Mr. Black offers there a second? Second by Mr. Alborough.
This is basically just administrative. I wish Rochelle was still here, but I asked, what was this about? She took the money from the wrong project for, I want to say, the pump station, and then, so it needs to be reimbursed back to this one. So it's just a clerical.
Any questions from the council? And it,
No. It has nothing to do with appropriations. Rochelle, during the budget hearing, made a mistake and took money from one line item. It was supposed to come from another one, so she has to reimburse that line item to pay it.
thank you. Any administration, audience? Machines are open. Passes 8-0.
Item 9G, an ordinance establishing the policy for Plaquemines Parish government in regard to mandatory terms to be included in all parish contracts for professional and other services and all contracts that extend beyond a single fiscal year, establishing the policy for the Plaquemines Parish government in regard to submitting all signed contracts to the council secretary within 2 weeks of the document being executed, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Roussel.
Mr. Roussel offers there a second? I'll second. Mr. Roussel?
Mirroring the policy that we adopted through the port to allow the language to be in the contracts for non-appropriations and convenience, and also to strengthen up the chain of paperwork to make sure that the council secretary has signed contracts on file in her office, since she is the official depository of the records.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Administration? Audience? Machines open. Passes 8-0.
Item 9I, a resolution authorizing the parish president or his designee to prepare and advertise for requests for proposals for professional services to create and lead a community-based co-design process seeking input for mitigation techniques and strategies to help residents and businesses cope with the impact of the Mid-Barrett area sediment diversion and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Blink.
Mr. Blink, your offer?
I'd like to offer it.
Mr. Blink offers there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Roussel. Mr. Blink?
All right, so this is coming about, what's going on is the state agency in charge of coastal restoration is building a sizable project, a transformative project on the west bank of the Mississippi River, just upstream of Ironton. They've been doing some surveys asking people what they think they might be able to do to cope with impacts. That's being done in a way where you can't hear what your neighbors have to say. That's limited to only folks with that are going to have water come up in their yard, not any of the other businesses or people that rely on the estuary or the basin. It's going to be impacted by Mid-Barrett area sediment diversion. Several years back, there was a very thorough and democratic planning process called LA Safe that was used to address other impacts, and that model where folks are meeting at round tables, talking neighbor to neighbor. There's table facilitators helping to urge the conversation along, but not steer it, is, in my opinion, a best practice and something that we could emulate here. This legislation just does a request for proposal. This doesn't ask for any money at this point in time. It just sees who can do this and what's out there. The Mid-Barrett area sediment diversion is probably no less than 5 years away from flowing a drop of water, so there's still plenty of time for the state to address impacts. This would be a Plaquemines Parish-led plan, and it would be this plan would be a photograph, more or less, a moment in time of what people in Plaquemines Parish believe that they need to address impacts to the Mid-Barrett area sediment diversion.
Thank you. Any questions? Council, the only question I got, the only mitigation I want is for them to stop the diversion. That's what I want. So, administration, audience, machines open. Passes 7-0.
Item 9J, a resolution authorizing the parish president or his designee to do all things necessary and proper to negotiate, execute, perfect, and enforce a cooperative endeavor agreement with the Plaquemines Social Aid and Pleasure Club and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Arborough, and this is offered with changes.
Offer with changes?
Mr. Alborough's offer, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Gouy. Can you read the changes, please?
On number 11, on line 11, after whereas, take out no and put a, and then after cooperative endeavor agreements, take out wherever signed and put in needs to be signed. Then they put in a be it further resolved after the first be it resolved. It states, be it further resolved by the Plaquemines Parish Council that it hereby authorizes the support of the participation in the appropriation of the following from the Plaquemines Parish government to the Plaquemines Social Aid and Pleasure Club for the purposes of their festival. 1, use of the Belle Chase Government Complex Festival grounds located at 333 F. Edward A. Bayer from April 22nd through 23rd, 2022. Number 2, use of electrical, water, and sewage and trash collection at the festival grounds. And 3, access to parish assets to promote the festival, highway notification signs. And that is it.
Mr. Alborough?
Yeah, this is for the annual crawfish cook-off fundraiser. That large portion, well, majority of the funds go back to the Plaquemines Parish and different clubs throughout the entire parish.
Thanks.
Thanks for your support.
And we do this for other organizations too, right?
Correct.
Any other questions, Mr. Roussel?
They have the next item, K.
That was being withdrawn. We merged the two.
Okay,
That was
so,
the changes on here.
all right, so the changes on J are including the 35 trash cans and so forth, use of the 5 by 20 tents, that stays.
Mr. Alborough?
We didn't specify it.
Well, in the original that we're on now, J, I read the corporate endeavor agreement, and the corporate endeavor agreement says there's 6 items on here. Use of parish employees to assist in the setup of the festival maintenance during the festival and takedown after the festival. Is that still included? Or should we be going to K and adopting K?
I guess defer it. I'll have to look into it.
Do you want to defer J and K?
J and K's.
J and K is deferred.
Item 9L, an ordinance to amend the 2022 General Fund Operating Expenditure Budget, Veterans Office Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer, ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Roussel. This is a grant going to the Veterans Affairs Office. Any questions from the council? Administration, audience, machines open.
$6,000, Henry.
Sorry about that, Mr. Henry. Passes 7-0.
Item 9M, an ordinance to amend the General Fund 2022 Operating Revenue and Expenditure Budgets, Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness Grant Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer, ask for a second. Second by Ms. Newberry. This is another grant to help Homeland Security and get equipment Communications.
$30,167.
Any questions from the council? Mr. Roussel?
This equipment, is this going to be located in any specific building?
I'm not sure, Mr. Roussel, but I'll get clarity from Director Harvey.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Machines are open. Passes 6-0.
Item 9N, an ordinance to amend the 2022 operating revenue budget and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich, and this is a fill in the blank.
I'll offer ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Gouy. Can we fill in the blank?
On line 13, under the amendment, they put $31,395, and on line 19, under amendment, it's $159,185, and that is it.
And this is insurance payment for damage on the,
Myrtle Grove and Lake Hermitage fire stations.
thank you.
And that's money coming to us
That's correct. To the firefighting fund
from insurance or what?
from insurance, yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Administration, audience, machines are open. Passes 6-0.
Item 9O, an ordinance to amend the 2022 general fund operating expenditure budget, flood control general department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer ask for a second. Second by Mr. Roussel. This is for, I think, a long reach excavator.
This one's coming from the BP fund too, so that means everyone present.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'll offer for this discussion. Y'all got a problem with this one?
Mr. Cognitive, we appreciate it. I don't want this to look as a bad gift in the mouth. We appreciate it, but the problem is we may not have anybody to run it. So I know you'd like to run it, so.
I will.
I know you are. I've heard that. But
Darren can run it too, but this would be essential in digging the drainage canal.
I'm 100% with you. I agree with you. Okay, I'm just, if you buy me a piece of equipment and you yell at me why it's not running, I don't may have an operator. Right now, we got how many? 3 operators. So, I mean, I could put the best operator on that. Just I'm stuck with another equipment that's not being used. Again, it doesn't mean that we're not appreciative.
Defer the next one too, but that's a bulldozer. I was asked about that one too.
Again, if I have that machinery and we're trying to clear land and we appreciate it, but
Thank you. 9S.
9S is deferred. 9T, a resolution appointing blank as representative to the Plaquemines Parish Government Civil Service Commission and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich, and this is a fill in the blank as well, and changes.
I'll offer and ask for a second. Second by Dr. Gouy. Can you fill in the blank and changes?
On line number 1, the blank is filled in with Ellen Barrios. On line 15, the blank is filled in with Ellen Barrios. And on line 16, change the year from 2025 to 2027. And that is it.
Thank you. Myself, Mr. Roussel, Ms. Newberry, Mr. LaFrance interviewed her today, and we thought she'd be the best one. Any other questions from the council? Administration? Audience? Machines open. Passes 6-0.
Nine U, a resolution authorizing the Plaquemines Parish Community Action Agency to prepare the necessary application to the Louisiana Housing Corporation for a grant to provide low-income household water assistance program to the residents of Plaquemines Parish for the fiscal year 2021 through 2023, and authorizing the president of the Plaquemines Parish government to sign and submit said application and contract, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer, ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. LaFrance. This is a grant to help the people pay their water bill, right? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any questions from the council, administration, audience? Machines are open. It passes 6-0. Defer V. Withdraw V. That's what he said.
The rest of the members are gone for the night?
Nobody told me anything.
Late.
I've just watched them come and go and took the times.
One more drop. Getting thin.
No, Councilmember Bartholomew told you to withdraw, but I don't know if that's the case, but,
That's what, we could defer it.
okay.
We could defer it. And if,
Because finance did it for a reason.
all right.
He told the administration we were withdrawing it,
That's what
but
he
I would
told me.
prefer y'all to hear that from him.
He told me that, but just to play it safe, we'll defer it, and he could withdraw it.
Which one is that?
V.
V?
V is in Victor.
Item 9W, a resolution to place the Gravelay Road Bridge located on the east bank of the Mississippi River, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, recall number 103005, structure number 0238-293-6389-4991, and the Martin Lane Bridge located on the west bank of the Mississippi River, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, recall number 103027, structure number 0238-29311-894421, in the off-system bridge rehabilitation and replacement program to ensure the necessary right-of-way for said bridge replacement and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Bartholomew.
Do I have an offer?
So offered.
Mr. LaFrance offers there a second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Gouy. Anybody know what's going on with this one?
I sure do.
Yes, sir.
A few years ago, y'all took the ferry ramps out of this program because we had other funding sources, if y'all recall that. This left a surplus in this program for us to replace some bridges. Now, typically, right now, previously, they would have a cost share associated with this, but I was contacted and they told me we needed to get a resolution putting these two bridges that qualify right now to be replaced at 100%. So there's no cost to Plaquemines Parish. It has to pass. It's free bridges, one on the East Bank and one on Martin Lane by Happy Jack.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
The one on the East Bank serves as private property?
They're all, no, sir. If it was private property, it wouldn't be in the program.
It's a simple question, Mr. Dugas.
That's why I give you the details.
That's why
I'm here.
Thank you. Any other questions? Administration, audience, machines open. Mr. Gould. Passes 7-0.
Thank y'all very much.
Item 9X, an ordinance to amend the 2022 operating revenue budget and to designate all Woodland Conservancy funding and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Black.
Anybody want to offer for Mr. Black? Or does he want to defer it?
I'll offer to.
Offered by Dr. Gouy, second by Mr. Roussel. Anybody know anything?
Yeah, this is money in the emergency fund. for the sale of the Woodlands Conservancy property.
Emergency fund, general fund.
Emergency fund.
Any questions? Administration, audience, machines open. That's a 7-0.
Nine Y, a resolution maintaining the current precinct 7-1 polling place located at the Bell Chase Middle School Gymnasium in effect through the end of the year 2022 and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember LaFrance.
So often.
Mr. LaFrance offered the second.
Second.
The second by Mr. Roussel. This is the polling place that was in Arlington.
Question?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Any other questions from the council? Administration, audience, machines open. Passes 7-0.
Item 10, approval of the minutes from the January 27th, 2022 regular meeting.
So often.
Mr. LaFrance offers, I'll second. Any questions? Machines open. Passes 7-0.
Item 11A, introduction of resolutions wherein suspension being sought, there are none. 11B, District 9 update, Councilmember Konovich. 1, Boothville Civic Center. 2, Fort Jackson Pavilion. 3, Hurricane Ida update, and 4, update of Highway 11.
Yeah, I've been waiting for 3 years for the Boothville Civic Center. Now I can't build anything except the pavilion. So we got $2.5 million left. So I think we ought to start doing some work on building a pavilion there.
Hey, it's my understanding that the Boothville Civic Center is still in closeout, and I don't think we have authorization to move forward with moving that money to a different project yet, but we will verify with Mr. Gaffney on that this week. As far as moving forward with a pavilion, we'll need to start with a design. There is one that's being built at the boat harbor down in Buras, Empire. We may be able to use the same design for that and save some money and possibly move forward with that. So I'll get to work on that this week.
Thank you. Also, Fort Jackson Pavilion, we had talked about that because they had, I think it was what, $1.5 million?
Yeah, for an alternate project, yes, sir.
Maybe use the same one.
Okay, I'll figure it out this week.
Did we get that bridge for the Fort Jackson and the PW?
The bridge over the moat?
Yep.
I do not know. I will check.
Thank you. And Highway 11, you know, did we ever get that company for the bags of blacktop on the preferred vendor lists so we could buy it?
I'll check with Nicole tomorrow to make sure that they send, we called them and asked them for the information. I never touched back on it, but we'll check it out and I'll let you know tomorrow.
Plus, we have other bigger spots that I can't handle with a couple bags that need to see about getting fixed throughout Highway 11.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item.
Item 11C, District 8 update, Councilmember Blank. 1, Highway 11 repairs. 2, shipyard drainage. 3, discussion of the inability of solid waste to handle debris on the parish right-of-way.
Okay. The Highway 11 repairs in my district are almost the inverse of Mark's. I've got a bunch of high spots, and I understand that we have a milling attachment that could be put onto a Bobcat. I've asked this once before, but I mean, is there any way that that equipment could be mobilized? People are breaking boat trailer axles, knocking cars out of alignments. There's just a few that are really, really bad. I can go mark them with orange paint. I want to make it easy for y'all.
I checked with Brad about that yesterday, actually, because I seen it on there, Mr. Blank. We've been working the storm debris and all of that. We'll try to get on top of it. Yes, we do have that machine. We do have the right hookups to it now. It was a little backwards at first when we put it on there and tried it, but we did get it straightened out.
Excellent. Okay, so shipyard drainage, I have some photos here. It's a shame John Helmer's left. It's his thing.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
For the purposes of these discussions for the next meeting, let's move to these items in the beginning of the meeting.
All right.
That way, the room doesn't get vacated by all of those people that we need to answer.
Do we even have a quorum anymore?
Yeah, we barely got a quorum.
Okay, all right.
But I'm not talking about the members here, I'm talking about the members out there.
Got it. Okay, could you please advance one more here? Oh. Yeah, so this is a situation, shipyard drainage. So this electric motor is brand new. It's just a few months old. And it's out of service, and the diesel pump in the background is shooting salt water all over the place. It's a really bad situation. The folks in flood control are doing the best what they can with what they have. But I've asked once before for a steel pipe to be installed, a new hose to be put in place. The machine, while I was there talking with the flood control guy, popped a belt, started running hot. It's not a good way to keep people's businesses dry. And it's tearing up the brand new equipment we just bought. We need to figure some stuff out. And the thing is, some of this is simple as taking tugboat rope and beating it into the cracks with a hammer, over by the shipyard slip, preventing water from getting in the first place. But we've got to get a little bit more permanent solution to this drainage issue here. And then let's see if there's some more here just to kind of illustrate. It might be it. It might have just been two photos. Okay, thank you, Kim. And then 3, there was much discussion today about storm debris removal and such, and basic sanitation isn't being handled in the southern part of the parish. There's a lot of debris. I think folks aren't educated to put vegetation and household debris aside. I think people are still not realizing that the parish can't handle what it used to. We just can't pick the debris up anymore. And it's getting to the point where residents and visitors they're making comments, and there might be some issues with rodents and other pests and such. Do we need to just go up on how much it costs to pick up the trash, to attract employees, to start paying people $15 an hour within that department? It's drastically understaffed. It's not capable of.
So as far as the pay, because it's civil service, there's no change in the pay rates unless there's a pay study done, hence the Archer study, which Mr. Kognovich brought up earlier, was voted down by the council last year. We had money in the budget and we started the Archer study. The only way we're going to get people hired is if we get the pay plan done and we get the pay rates changed so we can be a little bit competitive and try to hire some people.
Okay, where's the progress of that at?
Well, yeah, let me address that, because I've been dealing with the Civil Service Board since I became the chairman of the port. And the Civil Service Board administrator is telling me that the Archer study is being held up because the administration is not sending the proper paperwork into Archer to get it completed. We done missed 3 deadlines. So when are y'all going to finish supplying Archer with the information so we can get the Archer study completed, whether you like the Archer study or not?
And you are correct, Mr. Roussel. There has been some delay on administration's behalf. I sent an email out to the departments who have not completed their compliance forms this week to have those in by this Friday coming. Not this Friday, the following Friday. If they do not have their forms in by that Friday, we will move forward with the study.
Well, if the study might be lacking if we don't have the proper documentation in. But anyway, having said that, okay.
Thank you. Mr. Roussel, is did the new garbage truck come in today?
No, it never. It was supposed to, but it never. I checked on it before I come here. It was supposed to be, yes, February the 10th. It did not show up at Truck and Transportation yet.
Is the one we get from...
That's an automated truck, sir. Yes, sir.
The one we got from Solid Waste North keeps catching on fire, and
we fixed that problem. They had a short in one of the ground wires, and what it does, it goes to the nearest ground. When you got a short in a truck, it's hard to find. They finally figured it out. Yes, that truck is 20 years old, but it's keeping us above the nose, picking up garbage.
It must
So
be a fortune for
we-
oil and hydraulic oil, because
Well, we always send in trucks down the road too, from the north, whenever they finish the routes up here, and we helping out, even the trash trucks. And, you know, Richie, you talked about the trash all over the place. The public needs to stop putting the trash all over the place.
I hear.
You know, the Booteville River Road, we cleaned up, what?
day they-
It was Tuesday or Wednesday, we cleaned it up. There's more garbage out there than there's trash. You know, the tractors try cutting the levee. Everybody throws it on the levee. Okay? They don't put it in their yard in a pile. They put it on a levee. And that's a problem. The East Bank the same way. You know, yes, we got 18 positions in solid waste south. Okay? We got 6 vacancies and we have a total of 12 employees. And one of them was out for a month because of his medical card. I mean, yes, we shorthanded. I got a fella from Belche stays down there all the time and helps out on the south end. You know, we had the bare minimum. You seen the garbage in front of the compactors. By the weekend's over with, they got more people, they throw it on the ground more than they throw it in the can.
Can y'all
you know?
get with the Gazette to, you know, explain to the people?
Yes, sir. We put those flyers out all through the storm, separate your stuff. Nobody separating.
Well, that's
nowhere.
Not even during the storm season they doing it. So we need to tell them, you know, there's certain things you have to do for us to be
We
able
do,
to pick up
Mr. Cottonovich, and we tell them put it on your yard closest to the right of way. Not in a wooded area, not on the levees, you know, but they do. Okay? We working at it. We worked all weekend. Some of the guys from Belchase went down the road because none of the guys from down the road want to work overtime. Okay? So we send them down there on a Saturday. The dump closed at 12 o'clock. So we load up as many trucks, as many containers as we can. We made a good wrap on it last week. It looks pretty good. We still got a little bit more to go, but yeah.
We appreciate any kind of progress. Thank you for.
We have.
for
We
doing
hit the
some work.
Bootville River Road, the Bears River Road. We've hit Highway 11. We hit Highway 23. We still on DOTD to hit from West Point, Lahash. You know, they just don't want to go back out right now. We send an email. We send a letter to them.
I hear you, Scott. And like this is one of the reasons why we're upset. There's a $17 million bill for debris removal, and you drive around town and it looks like we live in a third world country, and it's just there's a disparity there.
Yes, it does. It does. I would like to get everything picked up. I tried my best when I was superintendent of solid waste to pick up as much as possible. Tell my guys, don't pass up a pile to go down the road.
Oh,
if it's there, pick it up.
Yeah, like
So
grab it.
we're working on it. Like I said, manpower. That's the biggest thing. We self-funded. Look, a truck driver. You know what a truck driver starts out at? $25,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's below a secretary here. That's $12.37.
Well, we thank y'all for everything y'all do.
You know, you want to go on further? Pump operators, they make $28,000 a year, $13 an hour. You know what, Venture Globals? You just advertised for Venture Global today on Facebook. I don't see y'all advertising for the parish.
I talk to people every day about it.
You know, talk and put it on Facebook too. You know?
Send me the
I mean, I could discuss it too because y'all keep wanting and wanting and wanting. We don't have people. Look at the yellow lines on the sheets.
Let me just say this. If we start advertising for employees, your legal department will attack us and tell us we have a human resources department, a civil service department. It's not your job. Right? Remember that discussion about 30 minutes ago? It's not your job. So, yeah, you can shake your head all you want. But when it fits the shoe, wear it.
I'm not shaking my head, Mr.
I'm
Russo.
not talking to you.
Thank you, Mr. Blink. You done?
Yes, I yield. Thank you.
And we'll get the pump fixed at Empire. The motor came in, when he went to hook up the starter box to the motor, it was bad. So we waiting on the motor box, electrical motor box to get it going.
Yeah, I hate to throw good money after bad. And if there's simple things that we could do to keep salt water from flying over, like do the steel pipe that I asked. Remember when we were hiring the welder, we wanted to save that welder's job? And I was like, I need one thing done in my district. I need that pipe for that pump fixed. It's not like I'm asking because I just dream this stuff up, you know?
You done, Mr. Blink?
Go ahead.
Defer the D.
Never gonna get done, John.
Mr. LaFrance.
Deferred.
Defer. Ms. Newberry's gone. Mr. Roussel defers.
I'm deferring mine.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll offer.
Mr. Blink offers there a second. Second by Mr. LaFrance. Machines are open.
You got everybody?
And it passes 5-0. Council meeting's adjourned at 7:29 PM.